So I want to welcome Will Hansen, and he is Roger Julie Basquez Vice President for Collection and Library Services, and also the curator of Americana at the Newberry Library. He's Vice President for Collection and Library Service. He oversees the Newberry's curatorial staff and the department that work to acquire, catalog, conserve, digitize, and make available and provide reference service for the library's collection. As curator of Americana, he acquires and helps to interpret the library's collection in American history, culture, and the American Indian and Indigenous study, including postcards, of course. He holds a master's degree in library and information science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. A Nebraska native, his bachelor degree in English is from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And he began his career in library at the Newberry Library in 2003 as a circulation assistant, and then in 2004 as the library's reference assistant. From 2007 and 2014, he was assistant curator of collection at Duke University, Davis Robertson Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And then he returned to the Newberry Library in 2014. He published various articles. He curated exhibition. I will not make a list of all those. I'm sure you can find them online, or he will be more than glad to give you the whole list. So thank you, Will, and that's the big show begin.
Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for having me here. I was supposed to be joined by my colleague Kinsey Major, who is the Newberry's postcard librarian, which is a fairly new position that is focused on reference and processing and cataloging, essentially, of postcard collections at the Newberry. Kinsey's unable to make it because of a family emergency, but I will happily pinch hit for her. I love talking about postcards. I love our postcard collections. I love talking to people about their postcard collections. So this should be fun. So my email is on here. Kinsey's email is on here. Feel free to get in touch with us whenever we can help with the Newberry's postcard collections or anything else. We are open to you. We are your library, along with everybody else's in the world. So greetings from Chicago, which is where the Newberry is. The Newberry's postcard collections, as you'll hear, are fairly new. We haven't had them for terribly long, but they are best known for, we are best known for holding the records of the Kurt Teich Company, large letter postcards being one of the things that they are best known for, although they did not invent them, they kind of perfected them. And we love the Chicago one in particular at the Newberry. Teich Company was also very well known for views of Main Street, USA, main streets of most of the cities and towns in the country, many Canadian cities and other international sites as well. This is one of those from a Chicago suburb, actually, Aurora, Illinois. We have thousands of these. To step back for just a minute, what is this place I'm talking about? The Newberry Library. What is it? Why does it have postcards? Well, the Newberry Library is an independent research library. It's independent in that we're not associated with any other library system or university. Sometimes people think we're part of Chicago Public Library or that we're affiliated with Northwestern University or University of Chicago. We're none of those things. We're our own nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3. We work with all those things. We work with all the libraries in the Chicago area and with the universities in the area, but we're our own organization. We're not funded by any of those other organizations. We are not a governmental organization. We're not a public library like CPL. We don't receive governmental funding for our operations. We're funded by an endowment that was established by a man named Walter Newberry back in 1887, and donations from people and organizations around the world. We're a research library in that we're a closed stacks, non-circulating library. So as you might imagine, people do not check books out from us like they do from a public library or any other materials. We collect rare, unique, specialized materials and make them available in our for use in our reading rooms. We're a humanities library, so we don't focus on the sciences. We mostly focus on disciplines like history, literature, art, music, etc., and collecting primary sources to support research in those areas. One of the other things we specialize in is local history and genealogy. We're probably known as one of the best half dozen or so libraries in the country for doing family history and other kinds of local history work. So if you're interested in that, we're also a good place to help with that. We are free and open to the public. So unlike a lot of research libraries, you can walk right in, get a reader's card, and start doing research that day. You don't have need any credential. You don't even need to have a particular research subject. You just need to have an interest in the collections and in using them. You do have to be 14 years older, just so you can responsibly handle the materials. But anybody of any age is welcome to use our exhibitions or take a tour. You can use the library without using the reading rooms as well. As I said, the Newberry is probably best known for holding the records of the Kurt Teich Company. All of this is by way of giving you some background for talking about how the collections can be accessed and used and how people donate to the collection or can donate to the collection. So just giving you some background to start. The Kurt Teich Company records at the Newberry are, like I said, the best known postcard collection we have and by far the largest. So the records include a complete run of the productions of the Kurt Teich Company, which was at one point possibly the largest postcard producer in the world, certainly in the US, producing literally billions of postcards. And they were based in Chicago. The image on the right that you're seeing was their factory, which was at the corner of Ravenswood, and it says Hermitage here. It's actually Irving Park now, in Chicago, that ran until the late 1970s. The founder of the company, Kurt Teich himself, is on the left there, a German immigrant who moved to Chicago in 1895. There's a lot more I could say about the backstory of the Kurt Teich Company, but I will skip over in the interest of time here. If you want to hear more, ask in the Q&A. I'll be happy to talk more about that backstory. How it came to the Newberry is it was transferred to us. So many people on this call, or at least some people on this call, might remember that the records were for a few decades at what eventually was called the Lake County Discovery Museum. They were administered by the Lake County Forest Preserve District, which is a county just north of Cook County, where Chicago is. They got there sort of by an accident of history. Ralph Teich, Kurt Teich's grandson, I think it was, sort of rescued them when the building that they were going to be stored in was going to go under demolition. Rescued them, and he lived in Lake County and just needed a place that could take them in. Lake County Discovery Museum willingly did, but the collection sort of outgrew the museum, and they did some alignment of their mission with their collections and realized this collection maybe didn't fit with actually telling the story of Lake County. So they looked for a new home for it. They talked to a number of libraries. The Newberry was the lucky library that took the collection in. We've had them for about a decade. This year is the 10th anniversary of them arriving at the Newberry. And it's a lot of stuff. It's about 2.5 million items is what we received. That number has fluctuated for reasons, again, I can talk about in the chat if people are interested. The collections have grown since then. There are other collections besides the Kurt Teich Company records, but by far the Teich records are the largest. Kurt Teich's own productions are over 400,000 unique postcard images, many other things besides, and they kept at least 3 of each of those postcards. So there's a lot of stuff in just the Kurt Teich records. This is how we store them. There are about 27 cabinets like this where the run of the postcards of Kurt Teich Company are kept. They're really nice sort of 2-drawer cabinets that you can pull out that are perfect, that fit perfectly 6 long postcard boxes, essentially. So we keep them in those cabinets in a variety of places in our Stacks building, retrieve them for users box by box, not postcard by postcard, because that's just too dangerous to misplace them if we take them out postcard by postcard. When the collection first came to us, this is just a little sort of interesting aside. This is what it looked like in 2016. This is all the stuff besides the postcard boxes that came to us. Filing cabinets, boxes of loose material, many other things besides. We called it Tyke Town. We sort of had a free room that was about to be renovated. We moved it all in there, and then eventually moved it in stages into our stacks building, the secure storage where all of our materials live. So we integrated this collection into the Newberry's overall collection of around 1.5 million books, around 600,000 maps, many other things besides, integrated it into the stacks building over the course of 2016 and 2017. One of the treasures of the Newberry's postcard collections is that it's not just postcards. It's one of the few places in the world where you can actually get a sense of how postcards were, and in some cases are, made. The production files of the Tyke Company are amazing. There are about 100,000 of them that have survived that we have, that document the process of Tyke Company's art department, their salesmen, and others at the company actually going from a customer order to an original photograph or original artwork to the printed postcard. What you're seeing here is an example from the production files of a black and white photograph of a diner that has been marked up extensively with what the colors are that diner is supposed to include, so that the art department could actually sort of hand color in the colors that were needed for the postcard. As an example of how the production files work, this is a finished postcard from a resort in Branson, Missouri in the 1930s. This is what the finished postcard looks like. This was the order slip for the postcard. You can see on here, the description is make a summer scene with bathers in pool. That was the sort of direction from the customer. This is the original photograph they were working with. A sort of fall or winter scene at the resort. It looks kind of glum. They clearly needed to spruce it up. So the art department sort of draws in the swimmers, removes some of the extraneous material, makes it look a little brighter. Then it goes to coloration and gets colored in. So most of what you're seeing in the finished postcard, if you don't know what you're looking for, it's pretty easy to miss. If you do know what you're looking for, you can see, well, those people are drawn in. They're not really there. But if you're not looking for it, you could probably be pretty easily fooled that this is a photograph. Interesting sort of aside about the files. We did an awful lot of work to get these production files organized. So they came in filing cabinets that were extremely dirty. As I said, the building they were in was about to be demolished in the late 1970s. Lake County had very carefully kept and preserved them over those decades, but had never had a chance to actually take them out of the filing cabinets. And they were very gritty, dusty, dirty in non-archival envelopes. So we had to remove them from the envelopes, get them into, on the right, you're seeing them in their sort of archival folders and acid-free boxes for long-term preservation. It also came with a geographic index. So the Newberry is one of the places where if you have a Kurt Tyke postcard, you can get a very strong sense of when it was ordered, who it was ordered by, how many copies were ordered, all those sorts of things. So some postcards that people have that are very hard to track down, those kinds of details, we can help with actually figuring out where they came from, how they got made, why they exist. Other collections that we have as well, some are publisher based. We have a Detroit Publishing Company collection that is not comprehensive, did not come from the company, came from a collector. That is something like, looking at my notes here, something like 16,000 of Detroit Publishing Company's postcards we have. It's a wonderful collection. DPCs are some of my favorites, actually. Collection of a Chicago-based company, the V.O. Hansen Company, which did some beautiful postcards in the early 20th century. We have a pretty close to comprehensive collection of around 5,300 postcards that V.O. Hansen made. We have a collection of Raphael Tuck and Sons that came from the renowned postcard collector Leonard Lauder, many of whose postcard collections went to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. His collection for Tuck is with us, and he particularly loved the oilettes, that Tuck and Sons did, which were made to look like sort of miniature oil paintings. There are around 27,000 of those. And we have a collection for the Dexter Press, which is one of the sort of second half of the 20th century collections we have. Dexter Press is also another collection where we do have some production files. So what you're seeing here is a production file for a Dexter Press postcard. We have around 37,000 of the Dexter Press's postcards and around 33,600 production files for those postcards. So by no means comprehensive in terms of the production files, but it does give a sense of how they were making postcards too. Collector-based collections that Collector has put together. John I. Monroe has been a great friend of the Newberry and before us Lake County Discovery Museum. He has donated his collections in a variety of subjects. He has an exposition or World's Fair postcard collection, a collection of artist signed postcards, a collection of postcards about postcards. There's a wonderful sports postcard collection in his collections. So those are all at the Newberry, and most are digitized and most are you can see online. I'll talk about that in a minute. We have a great Route 66 collection. This year, if you haven't heard, is also the 100th anniversary of Route 66. This is a great collection by a collector named James Powell, who basically collected right along the route of Route 66, roadside attractions, hotels, restaurants, postcards of sites along the route. The Brian Bossier collection is another one of my favorites. It's a small but wonderful collection with a lot of amazing real photo postcards, many of which are quite rare and incredible. This is one of the sort of disaster postcards from the Bossier collection. John High collection, another pretty well-known collection of ours, which also includes some exposition material, a number of topical and holiday postcard collections, probably best known though for the woven silks or Stephen graphs. If you can't tell from the slide here, this is actually fabric, a fabric postcard. It's Stephen graph, so made with sort of jacquard cards on a loom to make the image. And one of my favorites is actually one that we've acquired since these collections came to the Newberry. This is a small collection of a young woman named Clara Falls, who collected postcards of her family members and mostly real photo postcards. Clara Falls was actually a young woman who was a member of the Sauk and Fox tribe in Oklahoma, and while attending boarding school, kept these postcards, and in some cases, I think was actually the photographer who was making the real photo postcards herself. Clara herself is the one on the right next to the baby on the far right of the postcard. So this is a wonderful collection for our Indigenous Studies collections that is also really interesting for early 20th century collectors who we might not often find. So a variety of collections that we have in addition to Kurt Teich Company. How can you use these collections? What can you do with them? I'm going to try to do a little demo here. Hopefully this works. There are a number of ways you can access the collections and use them from home or get in touch with us about using them. We are digitizing postcards actively and hopefully eventually comprehensively, but there's an awful lot of postcards to get to. So we're not there yet, but we have many done. The best place to start is the Newberry's own digital collections page. So let me click on this and hopefully go out to it. Hopefully you are now seeing the Newberry's digital collections homepage, which you can just do keyword searching from here if you want in this box. But if you scroll down a little bit, you will see that we have it broken down by a variety of formats, and postcards is one of them. So if you click on that, you will then get an array of over 85,000 postcard images from our collections that you can browse through and take a look at and break down in any number of other ways. The language they're in, who the creator was, if that's known, the subject that they are covering, all those sorts of things you can get to from our main digital collections site. So as I said, the best place to start, but it is not actually the only place that you can go. Another place that you can go, and I'll skip the demo here because this is probably going to be decommissioned sometime fairly soon. But we inherited a database from Lake County Discovery Museum of primarily the Kurt Teich postcards and a few other of the collections as well. This site is still out there online. If you type Kurt Teich postcard archives into Google or something, you'll come up with this site. It's still very useful for tracking down Kurt Teich postcards, but most of the records in this database don't actually have images with them. It's only about 15,000 or so of 400,000 records that actually have an image with them. Most of them are just information, metadata, as we would call it, of what the postcard is, what its production number is, what place it is of, what geographic place it's depicting, those sorts of things. Still really useful, but a little clunky. And we are integrating the information in this into our digital collection, our main digital collection now. So stay tuned, but for now, you can still use it to get a full picture of our postcard collections. A couple of fun things you can do with our postcard collections. One is you can actually send a postcard online to someone. This is the postcard sender, where you can, again, hopefully do a demo here. You can actually use this to send a postcard for a holiday or just on a particular subject. So you can see there's a variety of subjects you can do. We're getting close to St. Patrick's Day, so I'll pick that one here. You can pick a postcard related to St. Patrick's Day that you would like to send to a family member or a friend, and include a little message with it and send it as a text or as an email to that person, just to give them a little chuckle. I know there's a lot of interest in postcard cataloging among this group and how collections get organized. We have this challenge as well. And one of the things we're doing to combat that is actually asking for people's help. So postcards, as you probably know, can be very difficult to classify, to give all the information about them that can be useful. And many of our postcard collections are not yet described at what we would say is the item level. They're described at the level of, this is what the collection's about. You can request the boxes of it and see what the postcards are within it. But in many cases, we don't have really detailed data about each of the postcards within that collection yet. This is a site called Postcard Tag, where you can help us with that if you want. So I'm going to click out here again to go online. On this site, you basically help us by transcribing data from the postcards themselves and also sort of classifying them, giving information about the place that they are depicting or the topic that they are depicting and that sort of thing. A lot of people really like doing this. We get people all over the world from dozens of countries doing this kind of help for us. You can see that of the postcards that we've loaded into this site, 74% have been classified, 47% are really challenging trade cards that have been classified. There's transcription to do of handwritten messages, if you like doing that sort of handwriting analysis. And then there's some really difficult handwriting, sometimes in non-English language, that has more work to do, but there's fewer of those in here as well. So you can also do that if you'd like, if you're interested in helping us out with getting our postcard collections more accessible, more thoroughly described. Overall, there's a research guide to help with using the collections at the Newberry and how to use them. This is a link to that research guide, which, as you can see, these are the sort of main categories of the research guide: how you can find items in our postcard collections, how you can go about viewing those postcards in our reading room or online, how you can reproduce those images if you wanted to do a reprint of a postcard or something. In many cases, you can do that, but copyright is a factor in some of that. And there's also a section for how you can offer postcards or collections of postcards for donation or for sale. So this is also a place where you can find some of that information, but I will also be conveying that to you in just a minute here. But this is a really good resource for learning about our postcard collections and how they can be used and how we're organizing them. Okay, so donations of postcards to the Newberry. How does this work? Generally, I suggest just starting with sending us a message. I've listed two email addresses here, one of which is mine, one of which is we have a general sort of collecting email, collecting@newberry.org. If you're not sure who to send it to or you can't remember my name, you can always just send it there. And some of the main information we will want to start is, are you just trying to find a home for it and you want to donate it, or are you actually trying to sell the collection? That will be a big factor in whether or how much we can accept. We do have some budget for purchases, but never goes as far as we want. And generally, particularly with postcards, we don't buy a lot of them, although we do buy occasionally. A description of what the collection focus is for your postcard collection. What is the topical focus or the geographic focus? What is the sort of collecting impetus behind the postcard collection? How many do you have? If you have a count of items, or if you just have a number of boxes or albums that you have, or even just a number of feet that they take up on a shelf. If you have 8 feet worth of boxes, that's useful information for us. If you have some sample photos, that's always helpful. Not that you have to have photos of everything. And what sort of condition are they in? Are they unsent postcards? Are they postmarked? Are they sent? Are they pasted into albums? Those kinds of things are very useful for us in determining whether we'd be interested or not as well. The next step for us, if it was, say, a postcard collection that we thought we wanted to accept, would be settling on a deed of gift, and that basically transfers ownership to us, lists any other stipulations that are needed. If for some reason that you wanted to indicate, some of these cannot be used for X number of years, that would be something that would go on here. We try to avoid as many restrictions as we can on our collections. We like them to all be open to anyone who wants to use them. But if anything else needs to be put into such a deed of gift, it can be put in. The other thing we would want to know is whether you plan to take a tax deduction for it. I'm not a tax attorney. This does not constitute tax advice, but generally, if you're going to take a tax deduction of over $5,000, my understanding is you would need to have it appraised by an appraiser to take that deduction. And we would need to sign an IRS form that says we are accepting this collection. We do have the understanding that it is worth this amount of money. And that's donation only. That does not apply to purchases. What are we looking for? In that research guide that I showed you just a minute ago, there is a collection development policy, and that gives some background information like I've given you tonight about the postcard collections at the Newberry, and also says what we're looking for, what kinds of collections in general we're looking for, and what we're not looking for. So you can always go to that postcard collection development policy if you want information about that. In general, some of the things we're looking for are postcards that help us understand more what postcards are, how they were used, the history of their production, postcards as a medium of communication, and other aspects of them. Oops, didn't mean to go ahead there. That's one of the kinds of things we're looking for. Postcard collections that are systematically developed around a location or a printing company or a printing technique. Even with collections that have that sort of specification, of course, we cannot accept all postcard collections. When you're dealing with as large a collection as we have, many collections will have many duplicates that we already have, and we just can't accept them. But there are collections that we don't have a lot of coverage for, and we're always interested in hearing from collectors if they're interested in finding a home, to see whether there's a good fit with us, because we have many postcards, but we always are interested in more to tell the story better. And particularly focused collections that relate to the subject areas that we specialize in. You can find the list on the website. I've already mentioned some of them here tonight. We can use our postcard collections to better tell the story of American history, American Indian and Indigenous studies, the history of other topics that we focus on. That's something we're really interested in doing as well. Specific topics that we're particularly interested in. We are in the Midwest. We are in Chicago. We're really interested in Chicago and the Midwest. As you might imagine, we have lots of postcards for this region. Always interested in more though, and in particular, real photo postcards from the Midwest are of interest because they're so hard to find. Indigenous people, I've already mentioned, a real focus of our collections in general and of our postcard collections. So interested in collections built around that. Collections that document really unusual printing techniques or processes or materials are also of interest. Innovative uses of postcards. And this could be something like mail art. This could be something else related to using postcards for marketing in an interesting way. Other kinds of topics like that would be of interest. Social movements are a big interest in the Newberry's collections. We have a great little collection of women's suffrage related postcards, but are interested in more like that. The temperance movement, civil rights, other kinds of social movements like that are postcards related to them are very interesting to us. We have one of the best map collections in the world and collections for the history of cartography. So postcards that depict maps are also a real interest of ours. We have many. Always interested in collecting that more comprehensively, though. What are we not looking for? Generally, we don't accept sort of miscellaneous. We're not really looking for miscellaneous travel collections. There will be too many duplicates. There are many of those out there. We generally don't need more collections like that. We also don't generally need incomplete sets. While it's wonderful if a collector, spends a long time building a collection and needs 5 more to complete a set, generally we're not going to have the time as an institution to complete that set. So if we can get a complete set, we would love to. We generally don't try to collect incomplete sets if we can avoid it. We don't really need type postcards because we have them all, with a few very early exceptions. We do have a list of very early production numbers for tyke that we don't have. And I will provide it to you if you are a collector who collects early tyke. But they're really hard to find. I don't know if we'll ever find the ones we don't have, but everything else we basically have. We can't really take really huge collections. If you have a collection of 100,000 postcards, it's going to be too big for us to take. We don't have the space for it because we took in the type collection. And generally, one of the condition factors that we look for, we try to avoid postcards that have been pasted in or taken out of albums. It's just a condition nightmare, and our conservation staff really likes it if we can avoid that. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So that is what I plan to say. I can always say more, though. Hopefully that left us plenty of time for questions. And thank you all.
Thank you. Well, was fantastic. Very interesting talk. So we had a couple questions on the chat. So I will try to relay. The first one, I guess you answer, were all postcards were not scanned as yet.
No, we're not even close. We are probably maybe 10%, maybe 15%. But we have many. The type collection is one that we have a lot of work to do on. We focused on some of the smaller collections first, actually, just because they're a little easier to handle. But tyke is the next big thing that we need to tackle. We need to start actually digitizing those postcards. Some of them do have images that we inherited from Lake County. But as I said, it's a vanishingly small percentage. It's something like 15,000 out of 400,000. So we got a lot of work to do there. But that's okay. We're in it for the long haul. We will get to them eventually.
And the second question from Pamela is that, can you discuss about how the Kurtyke company was disrupted during World War I, with the war disrupting production of American postcard publisher, such as International Art Publisher, were based in Berlin.
Yeah.
Did the Kurtyke company also struggle in those years?
I do have. That's a great question. I don't know as much about World War One as I do about World War Two for Tyke. World War One, I know, was challenging for them as it was for a lot of places, just with getting paper and other sorts of things. So the production does dip in those years. That being said, they were still churning out an awful lot of postcards during World War One. Some of them military focused and some of them not. So clearly they did not seem as impacted as, of course, European based publishers were. I've never seen sort of sales figures or anything to give me a sense of how much they were dipping. I'm just going by what we've seen in terms of the numbers of postcards that were they producing, and there aren't as many. But the World War II story is that Tyke basically did keep running postcards. They did keep publishing postcards, but they actually also were involved in the wartime effort by producing maps. They were producing maps for the war effort that were used for the invasion of Europe. And it was a secret operation that they were doing with the U.S. Army and received a commendation for at the end of the war. So they did not, obviously, U.S. Army did not want the Axis powers to know where the maps were being produced. So it was a secret operation. Yeah, it was one of the sort of great stories of the Tyke company was that they sort of shifted their operations to supporting the U.S. war effort during World War II.
Somebody, I guess Pamela, did a search for Ellen Clapsaddle postcard and she only found two. Probably she needs extra help to find the others, so there are only two.
Probably more. Yeah. It could be that we haven't gotten them digitized yet. It could be that we didn't identify the artist or didn't have information from the collector about the artist's signature. It is also quite possible that we just don't have them. That's also possible. We have a lot of artists sign postcards, but it's by no means all the postcard artists. So it could just be we don't have them.
Are you
I'm
interested?
happy to help, though, if you want to send an email.
Okay. All right, Pamela, you got it. Your task. Dane asked, how interested is a library of postcard from outside the USA?
Yeah. We'd be happy to have more, actually. If people have internationally focused postcards focused on a particular area, we'd be happy to talk. We get a lot of questions about that. There are areas of our geographic areas that we specialize in more or less around the world. We can't collect everything from everywhere, of course. We have a nice little Japanese art postcard collection. That's one of our best international collections. We have a couple of early European collections. We don't probably need a huge amount more for European countries unless they're pretty focused. Would be really interested in more from Latin America, from South America. Would be really interested in more from the Philippines. We have an amazing Philippines collection, for instance, and have a couple of small, really good postcard collections. Could certainly use more there. Yeah, that's what I would say. Not opposed to international postcards at all, but it will just depend on the specifics.
Okay. Somebody asked about the copyright ownership of the images.
Mm-hmm. So, for Kurt Tyke, the answer is on the website. There's no known copyright for Kurt Tyke postcards before 1966. The work was actually done by our predecessors. If anybody here has met Catherine Hamilton Smith, who was the sort of steward of this collection when it was at Lake County for many years, she did the work of actually tracking down the copyright notices, and Kurt Tyke Company did not renew their copyright when they needed to. So everything before 1966 is more or less free or clear, unless there are other stipulations, like it shows a trademark, like if it has a Coca-Cola sign, for instance, in the postcard, or if it has a photographer's copyright notice on it, which some of the postcards do, then there would be copyright stipulations. Otherwise, they're in the public domain. If they're from before 1966, you can use the image. Many of the other postcard collections are much more perplexing. What I will say is also not a copyright attorney, but many of the postcard companies have gone out of business. So unless those copyrights were purchased by another company, a successor company, there's probably a low likelihood that somebody's actually going to come after you for the copyright, if for a copyright violation if you publish it online or something. But they're very hard to track down. So uh, again, happy to help if you send us a particular postcard company that you're trying to find information about copyright for. I don't know how much we'll be able to help, but we're happy to help if we can. Yeah.
Another one is not related to Postcard. Daniel asks, what type of books are in the library?
Yeah, we have an amazing book collection. I mean, as you might imagine, the heart of the library is its book collection. So our book collection extends from early European illuminated manuscripts, so books of hours, things like that, that are, 700, 800 years old, through to 21st century artist books and many things in between. It's primarily a rare and specialized book collection. So its primary sources in the topical areas that we collect in, mostly American history, sort of the history of the Americas, North and South America, and Europe. But there are some good things for Asia and Australia and Africa as well. Lots of other specialized topics I could say, but the best way to get a better sense is just to go on our website and go to the collections section, and you'll get a sort of overview of what we have in general for the collections that we focus on.
So Sherry asks, do you have installment postcard? I'm not sure.
I think I know what that means, but can you say a little
Sherry,
bit more
can
about what you
you
mean by
unmute
installment
yourself?
postcards?
Well, they're just a set of, like, it's a set of postcards that make up like a puzzle.
Yes, we do. Yes, particularly in the John High collection, there are a number of great like puzzle postcards or series postcards. There are a number that are like a dachshund or a sort of long wiener dog.
Yeah.
There are others for other areas, and there are some that are installments of like a riddle or something like that. So a lot of those you can find in our digital collections that have been digitized, actually, and we have others that haven't been yet.
Yeah, this is an example of an installment postcard by the Hold Company.
Okay. How is that an installment postcard?
Well, I think there's four of them.
Oh, okay.
Like it's a panorama, and this is one part of the panorama.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Difficult to find.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Kyle, can you mute yourself? Mute yourself. Do you have World War II military map that Tyke produced?
We don't have all of them. They produced them in the millions, as you might imagine, for the soldiers that were using them. But we have examples. Yes, we have a couple of the examples that are marked at the top. They're marked top secret with the word that was used for the sort of secrecy level that they were given. Yep.
You mentioned that you have a acquisition budget for Postcard, and it is small. Are staff member actively watching for Postcard auction sites for possible purchases?
The answer for that is generally no. We're generally not purchasing individual postcards. We're generally purchasing like a collection of postcards or a series of postcards. And we're not doing it very often, like once or twice a year. The last series of postcards that we bought last year was a series of 22 postcards that were printed on a ship in the Pacific in 1908 and 09. The USS Charleston printed a series of postcards that we purchased from a bookseller, actually. So we aren't like looking at eBay every day for postcards. If you know of things that you think we might be interested in that you see across, please feel free to send us a message. But no, we're not generally doing that.
Okay. What vetting quality control process you use to review the open source information from the Zoom universe? sites before you integrate into your item level catalog records?
Yeah, so we have digital initiatives and services staff who put together that site and sort of monitor the metadata that is generated. Right now, we're not integrating it into the metadata in our own digital collections. Plan is eventually to do that. Right now, it's all living in that site, and eventually will be imported in. So we haven't done any of the quality control work yet because it hasn't been imported yet. It's all sort of living in that site. But we'll do quality control to make sure that it all looks okay. The principle with crowdsourcing is basically something is better than nothing. So we by no means expect that all of this will be perfect. Then again, what we ourselves produce for metadata for postcards or anything else is also not perfect. So with the volume that we have to deal with, it's a way to get more done more quickly.
Thank you. Regarding tagging of postcard, have you experimented with using AI to suggest tags? I did some experiment on a few of my postcards and I was amazed. That was Max that suggested that question.
I myself have not, but I believe our digital initiative staff has done some of that sort of experimentation with mixed results. But I'm sure it's going to continue to improve or be refined. Yeah.
Next is Nancy Ann. Conservation staff, what kind of conservation do they do on postcards?
Yeah. Hopefully not a lot. We have a conservation lab and a conservation staff in-house with conservators. We don't do a lot of item level conservation for postcards. A lot of the conservation measures we do are basically giving them enclosures that help them stay happy. If we do get postcards that have some sort of damage, like if they were pulled out of an album and needed the sort of paste or the remnants of the album page on the back of them, if that was obscuring text that was important, we can ask them to see what they can do to remove that from the postcard. It may be that it's lost underneath it, but that's the sort of thing conservation staff could do. We haven't done a lot of it though, just because of the volume.
Somebody missed the first part, but do you interested in collection of Native American photographs and postcards of boarding school in America?
Yeah, would be happy to talk with you about that. We have a lot of interest in Native boarding schools in particular. We have a lot of postcards for it, but there's certainly many that we don't, and it would be nice to have a comprehensive or systematic collection of them, which we don't right now. It's sort of scattered through a number of collections.
Bob says, does the library have a Curtite view folders, both regular size and miniature?
Yep.
Yes. All
Yes, we
right.
do. Pretty much all of them, I think, although there's always possibility that there are some that we don't.
How extensive is your postcard book collection?
Yeah, so we also inherited the library of the Lake County Discovery Museum that they had built since the late 70s into the 2010s related to postcards. So it's fairly extensive. We have a number of the runs of postcard journals. We have a number of the sort of bibliographic and collector guides to postcards, number of books about postcard history in a variety of specialized areas. So fairly extensive. Yeah.
All right. How large is your trade card holdings and what years do they span? Trade cards.
Do you mean trade cards as a genre separate from postcards, or do you mean a type?
Bob, unmute yourself and specify your question.
I think I saw nodding that it was trade cards separate from postcards.
Okay.
And I can say we have trade cards. We don't have a sort of dedicated trade card collection in the same way we do postcards. So it's by no means as large as the postcard collection. We have great trade cards for printers, actually. We have an amazing history of printing collection. So we have trade cards of a number of printers going back to the 18th century. We have a few great albums of Victorian trade cards from the 19th century in both the US and in Europe. I know that there's a couple of other pretty specialized ones in areas I can't remember, but if you send us an email, we'll be happy to tell you more about what we have for trade cards.
Thank you. Okay, Peter, this is a long question. Are the so-called albums still available for viewing? I used this on Wakunda on about 10 visits there in the 90s, an early part of this century. They were postcard pasted in album by Curtite employees in chronological order by year as the postcard were produced. I found them very useful. I would write down the stock number of a particular card, and Christine Pyle and Deborah Goss will go to the file and make photocopy of them for me. There was a nominal charge. When I visited Newberry in 2018, no one seems to know what they were.
Well, I'm sorry that happened in 2018, but yeah, we've got them. They're available. They're listed in the, there's actually what we call a finding aid or an inventory for the Tyke company. The albums are just listed separately, but yeah, they're all there. They're in chronological order. Yep.
I guess, Peter, you need to get another visit to Chicago. Do you have colotype postcards?
Can you tell me what a colotype postcard is?
Well, it's a printing process that in photography is considered as a photographic printing process. People haven't quite figured out how to classify it because it actually was a way you made a plate and made multiples, but it's not really a mechanical process. It was all hand done.
Okay.
I mean, I have some. I'm trying to find out a lot more about them.
I'd be surprised if we didn't, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Because they have much more detail than your normal mechanical printed postcard for views, but they don't have the very fine detail of an RPPC.
I'll have to go looking. I don't know.
All right, Nancy, send Will an email so that you can chat.
Well, I hope this is going to be put up somewhere because I didn't copy down all that stuff.
Oh, Jackie specified colotype postcard are vintage, high quality photography reproduction popular between 1870 and 1920, known for their continuous tone and lack of half-tone screen dots. Produced using a gelatin-coated plate, they offer delicate photography-like details and sometimes hand-colored soft pastel hues. They were widely used for scenic and artistic cards. And this is from University of Maryland's definition.
We almost certainly do then, because we have an awful lot of postcards produced at that time, and in particular, a lot of scenic views, particularly from Europe, particularly from Germany. So I would guess the Germans were sort of ahead of all of us with printing techniques at the time. So I would guess that some of those are colotype postcards.
Thank you. What is the extent of your African American collection and how it is organized?
Sorry, another specifying collection. Do you mean in general at the Newberry, or do you mean postcards?
I guess on postcards.
I can tell you that we have many African American postcards. We don't have a dedicated collection of African American postcards, but there are African American subjects and topics included in a number of the collections. Tyke themselves produced a pretty large number of African American postcards across the whole spectrum. Really offensive racist imagery, cartoon postcards, and postcards promoting African American businesses. They took business from whoever. So we actually have some really rare postcards that are like views of the interior of African American owned businesses in Chicago and other places that Tyke did. We have some really rare and really horrifying real photo postcards of lynchings. There are many others related to African American subjects across the collection. So it's a sort of diffuse portion of the collection. There's no one dedicated African American collection. Another thing that I would love, if there's an African American postcard collector out there, would love to get more of those. One small but amazing collection that we do have that's digitized on our website is not technically postcards, or sort of is postcards. They're QSL cards. They're cards produced by ham radio operators who are African American from around the country in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I think is the 1960s, 70s, 80s. Those are one of my favorites. The imagery on them is amazing. So that's one of the dedicated African American collections we have for postcard or postcard adjacent.
Kyle mentioned that the Art Museum in Phoenix has a display of Indian boarding school postcards. Okay, I want to see production files. Do I need an appointment? Do you need to make an appointment?
You do not need to make an appointment. We're open. Reading rooms are open 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesday to Saturday. You're welcome to come and just take a look. You will need to know what you want to see because there's 100,000 of them. So you'll need to know a particular postcard. So there's only a slice of time that the production files survive from. So if we have a production file, you'll want to know the production number that you want to see so we can take a look. I wouldn't suggest showing up and just saying that if you really want to know if there's a production file. So you don't need an appointment, but I would suggest getting in touch with us and asking us if we could see if there are production files for the specific postcards you're interested in. If you just want to see examples of the production files, yeah, you could come on in and we'll be happy to show them to you.
Just 2 comments. Jerry said there was a company in Canada that produced collotypes exclusive from the early 1920s to the 40s, and they were called the Photo Gelatine Engraving Company of Ottawa, abbreviated as PICO. And then the next is regarding African American postcards. I have in front of me right now a 1938 catalog, comic and scenic postcards, which has a number of sets of very racist postcards. Right now I'm looking at the CT Chocolate Drop comic, absolutely awful. Hard to believe that these postcards were sold in America.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah. And the last question that I have, do you have displays in public area?
So yeah, the one main postcard display that we have up as a sort of permanent display is a Ferris wheel. So we have a miniature Ferris wheel that was made to display postcards. That's on display on the 3rd floor of the library, more or less permanently. We sort of occasionally swap out the postcards that are shown in it. It's almost always Chicago postcards that are in there. Many of our exhibits also incorporate postcards. The exhibit that just came down that was actually about maps, different kinds of cartographic subjects, had a number of postcards in it. So often the exhibits that we have up that rotate every 4 months or so, you'll see postcards in them, but we don't have a permanent postcard display the way that Lake County did.
Do you have programs aimed at getting younger generation interested in postcard history and art?
Well, we have lots of public programs, many of them aimed at younger folks as well as folks from across the age spectrum. And we have had specific postcard programs, are always interested in ideas for more. So the answer is yes, although we do not have a sort of dedicated program devoted for that that's on the calendar right now that I know of.
I just want to comment on those production files that someone just asked about. Catherine Hamilton Smith sent me all of them for the various cities and towns on Cape Cod. We had a Cape Cod Postcard Club. And from those, I was able to produce in Excel a very extensive checklist. I'm sure that a copy of that is in the Newberry files now. It was done for the Cape Cod Postcard Club, but it listed in chronological order and by city and town the title of the postcard, how many were produced, the year, and the local publisher, if there was one. So anyone that was collecting any of those cities and towns on the Cape, it was very useful to them. So, if you come from a particular town someplace and you collect those cards, that information can be extremely useful.
So I sort of skipped over this in my talk, but I should say, so that information is in the geographic index that the Tyke company maintained, and we have digitized that. So I didn't include a link, but if you go to the postcard research guide that's included in the links, there's a link to the geographic index, which is broken down state by state. And there you can actually see it goes town by town within the states alphabetically. So you can see all the postcards that were produced by Tyke. It's not actually all of them because they stopped keeping the geographic indexes later in the company's history in like the 70s, but almost all of them that were produced by the company town by town. And as Peter said, you can see the number that were produced. You can see the date they were ordered. You can see who they were ordered by. So it's super useful, and that is all available online now.
Thank
So that
you.
we have digitized. It's something we've done.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone is at the museum or at the library and wants to take a picture of a card or several cards, do you allow that?
We do. Go nuts. We allow photography. You can bring in a cell phone. We just ask you not to use a flash. Yep. It's up to you to determine whether or not you have the right to reproduce that with copyright restrictions. But yeah, we allow self-photography. We don't allow outside scanners or things like that. But if it's something handheld that will not make contact with the postcards, you're allowed to do it yourself.
Will, can you speak about the digitization process that you're using for these? I mean, are they flatbeds or sheet fed, or is it a photographic process? Or
It's a photographic process by and large, and that's mainly for quality. We have done some on flatbed. We did some on flatbeds, and probably will do some in the future. But by and large, it's been with a camera stand, with a high quality camera, getting good shots of them. So it's pretty labor intensive, really, if you want to get really high quality images. We've talked about whether we would ever allow a sort of sheet feeder to do a bunch of these to get them done more quickly. We haven't done that yet. We have concerns about the damage it might do to the cards. So yeah, by and large, so far it's been in our photography lab on a camera stand, taking shots of them.
That's a lot of work because you have to.
And
we have the other side of this is we have a digital asset management system where they are all stored and backed up and made available. So there's a sort of back end to the front end that you're seeing of that website where they're in the digital collection. A lot of the work we do is actually for preserving the digital files. The photography, frankly, is the easy part, although it's also not easy. But maintaining the integrity of those files and making sure that we have them backed up and secure is sort of a harder part.
And not to ask this question in a room full of postcard collectors, but is there any de-accessioning process? I mean, if you mentioned if you had duplicates, will we ever see a Newberry postcard auction or to raise funds?
We have an awful lot of duplicates. We are trying to figure out what to do with them. You probably remember Lake County did that with a number of the Tyke postcards decades ago. Yeah. So a lot of the early ones, we don't have a lot of duplicate. A lot of the early Tyke ones, we don't have duplicates for anymore. But as part of what we got from Lake County, we got all the Tyke overstock, and that was tens of thousands of mostly Holiday Inn. So, we certainly don't want to throw them away, but there also is not a huge market for them, and we don't want to flood the market with, you know, 100,000 Kurt Tyke postcards from the 1970s. So trying to figure out what to do. Yeah, it is possible that there will be an auction at some point or a sale at some point. Right now they're in storage, waiting for us to figure out what to do with them.
Thank you. Any other question?
I have some questions.
Sure, Fred.
Yes. Are you talk about the Midwestern postcard collections, and there's a company I'm aware of called LL Cook. It was based in, I believe, Milwaukee, and they were extensively capturing the Midwest for many years, from like 30s and 40s of real photo cards. Are you seeking those cards, or have a archive of LL Cook company?
I don't know of a particular collection that we have that focuses on Cook. I've come across some of those cards in smaller collections as part of collections that are more geographic focused. But we don't have an extensive Cook collection, and would certainly be interested if somebody has such a collection. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the David Tinder collection in Ann Arbor at the
Yeah.
Clemens?
Yeah, that's an amazing collection.
It's a
Yep.
very good collection.
Yeah.
Now, when you say specialized, I mean, I'm currently out tracking down Doe Dessar, who captured the early tulip time. He must have did hundreds of cards.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would someday be something. Either if I get enough of them, either it's going to go to somebody in Michigan, or would you be a possibility?
Sure. Yeah, we'd be happy to talk about it. I don't know enough about the specifics, but it's quite possible.
It's not right now. I just wonder if
Yeah.
down the road, if that would be something specialized enough that might generate
Yeah.
interest. 'Cause
Yeah,
you don't-
particularly things like Midwestern festivals or particular towns or something like that. That's right in our wheelhouse. Yep.
In your collection, do you have Chicago publisher Volland publishing the postcards that they published? Do you have that in your collection?
We do have some. Is it P something Volland? Yeah.
Mhm.
We do not have a comprehensive collection of the postcards, but we do have some. Yep.
Thank you.
Wow, this was a fantastic presentation. And as you can see from all the questions you had, it's generated a lot of interest. So thank you, Will. Thank you
Of
very,
course.
very much.
Thank you all.
For
Come
all
visit
your
us in Chicago.
information. Definitely everybody will come now.
Hope we'll see you soon.
Yeah, so please see you soon. And thank you very much. And thank you, Kinsey, as well. Despite she couldn't be here, we'll hope to see her online maybe on one other
She'll have
day.
to do another presentation for you. Yep.
So I will say thank you very much to everybody to attend. It was very well attended. We have almost 60 people at one point.